Well, all right. Welcome, everybody. We're going to give folks a minute or two to filter in. This is Mike Shaman. I'm CEO of GCL Labs. We have a few very special guests today with Cabe as well as Dave Martinez to talk about game-changing sports sponsorship activations. So give us about 60 seconds. This is where we should have some play-in music, MK. This is where we need the polka music to really shine.
We're so not bringing polka over to LinkedIn. Like, do you want to know? I can't think of anything that will anger the algorithm more.
You don't think that that's going to be an immediate win?
Look, our best case scenario is getting DCMA'd for it. I mean, there's no winning with polka.
Right on. Well, very good. And gents, I'll leave it for a minute or two as people come in and join us to have you go over your bios. I'll give the GCL bio real quick, whether you're listening to this live on LinkedIn right now, or whether you are listening to this on an alternative platform, because I know we're planning on rebroadcasting into the Twitter sphere, maybe YouTube and elsewhere. Welcome. This is the fourth in the series of sessions we're having with brands and agencies in the event marketing space?
At least the fourth, yeah. I don't know. They go by so fast. They're awesome. 2 weeks is like the perfect amount of time between these so that we can really appreciate them and have fun exploring different topics, not just filler and things like that.
Yeah, and we'll be doing this. We're here 12 to 1 every other week. And we're exploring a bunch of different topics in the event marketing and digital experience space. If you don't know us, GCL Labs, we are a creative technology studio. We build lots and lots of really amazing brand experiences in the event space and find really unique ways to tell stories through the use of new technologies. Been old hands in augmented and virtual reality, doing a lot with Web3. And also, we've been working with AI for several years, and clearly that's a very hot topic right now. So, with that background, we get to meet a lot of really cool people, and a few of those are on stage. So before I go too deep into things, Cabe, let me throw it over to you. Why don't you give us a little bit of a bio, tell us about your background, what you're doing now, and about yourself.
Yeah, appreciate it, Mike. And MK, thank you again for having me on. 18 years of experience in the sports sponsorship space. I was a little different from David's side. I was on the selling side, so drawing in great brands to line them with organizational goals. And most recently have a consulting firm specializing in that with a couple of different properties around the country, as well as an experiential activation firm. So really kind of living in that world of, bringing brands to events in some way, shape, or form. So it's been a lot of fun. It's exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing how we can do and answer some of these questions.
Right on. And then we have Mr. Dave Martinez, who is Senior Director of Sponsorships at SAP. Dave, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Shaman and MK. Thank you guys for inviting me here today. Excited to talk to you about sponsorships. I'm, as you mentioned, Senior Director of Sponsorships at SAP. I've been in this role for just about 10 years now. Before that, I was a finance person, so very, very different world there. But essentially, my role as the property manager is oversight of several of our North American sports marketing partnerships. And what that means is overseeing essentially the management of each property, as we call them, from architecting and negotiating the contracts to ensuring strategic alignment, delivery of rights, activation, media, all the way down to the fun stuff, including budget management. Essentially bringing these partnerships to life for SAP and ensuring that we get the most value we possibly can out of them.
Right on. And let's start. Let's stick with you and start as we kind of dive in. How have you seen SAP's sports sponsorship strategy evolve over the years? And if you can talk a little bit about, I know that when we met you guys, it was while you were deeply partnered with the NFL. I know you do a lot of work with the NBA, a lot of work with the NHL. How have those, how did those initiate? And then, how have they changed in the last 5 to 7 years?
Yeah, good question, because that's one of my favorite things about this industry, is change, is that it's constantly changing, and you can rapidly, as well, given all of the circumstances and the different brands that are constantly entering it. When we first started out, we wanted to create the sports and entertainment business vertical, and we saw that the best way to get into that and create that was through sponsorships. So we signed deals with many teams and leagues, and like most things, after a few years, we kind of learned, right? We at first, this industry is exciting. It's bright. There's endless opportunity, and really where we were seeing the most value, and that, helped change our strategy and our approach to it. As a B2B company, I think that there's a lot of nuance that maybe differentiates from a B2C company and how you kind of activate here, right? And at the beginning, we were behaving a little bit like a B2C company, and we saw some good returns there. But once we started understanding the best way to align to our strategic goals as an organization, as a B2B enterprise company, that's when we really increased the value that we were getting out of the sponsorships. And I think the biggest change that we saw was in experiential activation. In the beginning, we were taking every advantage we can to put the brand in arena, in stadium, engage fans. We were doing things that really didn't tie back to generating business for SAP, but really to get the brand out there. Over the years, we have refined that strategy, and now we still want to create unique experiences for fans, but we want to make sure that behind all of those experiences, we're delivering our core messaging. And that's how we and our technology is helping whatever organization, the team, the league, helping them gain business value, whether that's through engaging their fans in a new way, whether that's through running their business in a different manner, increasing operations and efficiency, things like that. But now we've really fine-tuned that activation strategy and making sure that we demonstrate that through everything we do. So just to give a quick example, some of the work we've done together in our suite at Levi's Stadium with our friends at the 49ers. Our showcase there is the executive huddle, and it's SAP technology helping the 49ers run game day and create the best game day experience in the league. What do we do with you guys? We built an experience in our suite that gives fans or our guests that come join us for the game the opportunity to understand the challenges that go into running a stadium that has 70,000 people coming to it every Sunday. I should say 9 Sundays a year now with the extra home game this season, last season that was added. But what it does is helps the fans understand how the technology is helping create this amazing game day experience and the challenges that they may not have been aware that the teams have to deal with in running a game day operation. So that's the messaging behind it. It creates a fun experience and also helps teach you something about what SAP is doing to help your favorite team.
Right on. Yeah, it's been interesting to watch you guys, on the production side, going from big, broad NFL sponsorship down to micro level of creating activations where you can show how, SAP technology allows for more efficient parking or more efficient queues in concessions and things like that. It's definitely been fun to watch and to be a small part of. So, Cabe, over to you. How have you seen your world change? And let's talk a little bit about pre-pandemic and what was standard maybe 5-6 years ago. And then let's talk about how that's kind of changed, both from a strategic and tactical perspective.
Yeah, I think what we've definitely seen pre-pandemic was, from my end of the world, a ramping up of the experiential activations. So there's really that immersive experience. How do we touch each fan physically in some way, shape, or form with the brand, with the value that they present? And I saw that was ticking up and up and up, and then obviously COVID hit, live events shuttered, and we saw a switch over from now how can they activate in a virtual space. So again, being able to shift a little bit more to the verticals of OTT through live broadcast, things of that effect when there weren't physically fans coming in. And then obviously in the last year and a half, we've seen that shift back over. So now it's really just a matter of, each company's look and feel and to what they want and how they're looking at it. But we've seen a lot of them go back to hey, we want to be there. We want to be bringing in, and we want to be at events and festivals and games and things to that effect. And so it's an interesting dynamic right now, and that we're still trying to find out where they want to land. But I think with on my side of the spectrum, it's interesting listening to David speak. He's very focused on the SAP brand and doing the right thing for it. And like you just said, David, it's interesting as at one point you kind of threw all the darts out there as much as possible and saw what you could cover. And then you realized as you went through, the values of certain entities just weren't there for you and went a little bit more focused in other ways, shape, or forms. And on my side, I see that from each individual company and brand that we're talking to, still trying to figure some of those things out. Some of them seem to have a really good understanding of analytics and data on how their activations or how their buy-in is coming along, and others are still trying to feel from the gut. They don't necessarily have a scientific backing to it or quantitative backing to it. They're just looking at it going, well, this looks like it might be a good brand buy here, or this might be where we're trying to figure out, and they're still testing out markets. And so we've seen it more and more post-COVID that it's coming to that way. But in this year, a lot of the dollars that were put out there for 23, we haven't seen incremental dollars going up. They're really kind of, going, hey, we budgeted 22 for 23. Where we're putting our money out, where we're looking at investing is where we're going to stay right now. We're not really going to test new things as of yet and see how it goes, and then look at, Q1, Q2, and 24 as to whether or not we want to jump back in and look at other fields that we have that aren't necessarily tried and true into what we've been successful at.
Yeah, it's interesting. I look at the live event space and what it was pre-pandemic, and then in the middle of everything kind of shutting down or slowing down, this big shift to virtual events, and, pure remote audiences. Now, the sports space in particular, was challenged with things like the bubble for the NBA, people playing in stadiums where there were no fans allowed. And now I feel like the pendulum has swung back rather severely in the IRL activation world, because we are seeing, record attendance, in real life events. We are seeing, people were really hungering for that connection, to experience, some of these things in person and to be a part of them, which I think has been fascinating. And then you also had the kind of whiplash effect of seriously reduced staff, challenges from an operational perspective across the board, that only now I think are we just getting caught up to, and this is I think everybody experienced some service challenges out there, with, reduced capacity to deliver those experiences. But it's really great to see that it's back. It's also, I think it provided us a really unique opportunity to see a world without live events, to show how important and powerful they are. So, Dave, back over to you. What are some of the tentpole events that SAP participates in? And this is the IRL side of things, not necessarily like the Sapphires and the B2B business elements, but we're talking Super Bowls, we're talking All-Star games, we're talking, finals. And, I know you've had the opportunity to attend a lot of those. What is SAP's strategy specifically around some of those really major, massive eyeball, massive attended events?
Yeah, well, Just to build a little bit on what you guys were talking about, what we saw during the pandemic was the big shift to digital. And, I think, I completely agree. And let's just say, thankfully, real live events are back, better than ever, because I know we all miss that. And, I'm grateful to work in the industry where we get to go to a lot of these events and experience them, and there's nothing like it. But that shift to digital was the pandemic certainly accelerated that, and we saw that across all of our customers, even outside the sports industry. And I think that part is here to stay. And that part is certainly a big part of our strategy now, is how we kind of bring these to life through those channels. However, the real life events are back. I know that our customers are thrilled that they're back, because now we can bring them to these amazing events that our partners put on, like the NBA All-Star Game and the Super Bowl and 49er home games and things like that. So, very important for us still to have a presence, in real life at these events. Although the digital, piece is important now as well. We want to make sure through these sports partnerships, look, these organizations, the teams and the leagues, they provide unique, once in a lifetime type experiences. We want to make sure that our customers and partners are there to experience them, and also understand why SAP is there. We don't want to sign a partnership or a sponsorship just to get our logo up and get some tickets, right? We need an authentic reason to be a partner here, and usually that's through technology. That, as mentioned earlier, our partners are using our technology to run their business or grow their fan base in some form or fashion. So most of our in real life experiences will have a group. For instance, the NBA plays global games every year, right around the world. One of the reasons we love the league, the global presence, and the fact that they're bringing the game all around the world. They held a game in Paris in January. We had a customer program there. We had an activation on site at the NBA house, and then we also have NBA executives come and speak to our group and help our group of customers understand how they're leveraging SAP technology, what they're using it for what form, fashion to grow their business, and how it's helping them expand the game outside of the U.S. So in real life, it's a mix of experiential, whether we're doing a VR type activation, and also business content, right? We need to have both of those together, and we try to do that at every major event we're at.
I love that meta combination of supplying technology to the teams and to the league that powers fan experiences, and then, looping back into the executives and into the teams themselves to help represent the SAP brand to reinforce. That's just such a good application of sports and of events, and just a really great way to approach. By the way, if you are just tuning in, quick room reset. This is Gen City Labs, where we host LinkedIn Lives every 2 weeks about various topics. Today, we are joined by Dave and Cabe to talk about sports sponsorship activations. If you're listening live, thank you for joining us. If you're not listening live and you're listening to a recorded version of this on Spaces or podcast, thank you guys for tuning in. We do it live, typically on LinkedIn, every couple of weeks. So, Cabe, back over to you.
Yeah.
What are you finding that brands are finding is most impactful within the sports space these days? I know you can do a lot of things with sponsorships and names on stadiums and naming rights and things like that. That all the way down to unique interactive experiences and concourses and things. What are brands, leaning towards at the moment? Is it the bigger, broader awareness plays? Is it the more kind of micro activations that, you can tie back to direct response, and pull some data from?
It's interesting you say that, because I was listening to what David was talking about, and it's one of the hurdles and challenges when you're trying to match brands to properties, is that there really isn't a cookie cutter mold as to what every brand wants to do. So when you're saying, like, if they're leaning one way or the other, right now I really haven't seen it going in one direction. I could have a conversation with brand X about, hey, we want to be associated with your fan base. We know the demographic fits where we need it to be. We want to be on site. We want to be able to product sample. We want to do those type of things. And then you go into brand Y, and theirs is, hey, we need commercial spots. This is what our play is here. We want to bring it in there. So it's really about just listening, ironically, to what they're saying and trying to step in with creative ideas based upon the properties that you represent and helping out in that way, shape, or form. Because there's been so many times where, and it's interesting, I've got a couple of friends on David's side of things where, they get presented with this, a la carte type of menu of items, and what they're missing out is how do we truly make an impactful relationship, as David was talking about, with this company. And so, for example, talking to David and SAP, well, we want to be able to utilize our technology within the organization. Well, that's something that's of high value. How do we make that happen? And then how do you get that out to the masses to let them know of that association? In some other ways, it's not necessarily what we refer to as, a B2B play where there's a business relationship. It's more of a, hey, we want to just look at the spots and dots. We want the eyeballs and the people in front of who you're talking to. So, so it's a unique world in that I can't really say that I'm seeing everybody's going one way or the other. Everyone's going for a brand buy. Everyone's going for an on-site event activation. It's really just been a case-by-case study based upon A, the property, and B, the brand itself and what their focus is.
Sure. Shaman, if I could just jump in real quick. I think Kate hit the nail on the head right there. I always often say, how do you measure success in this industry, right? It's more of an art than a science. Every brand has a different approach because they have different objectives. And we've certainly found the most success, to Cabe's point, with our partners that listen to what's important to us and come with new and creative ideas on how to get value out of this, right? 15 years ago, completely. Getting the logo up in the stadium was the goal, and everybody was happy with that, right? But while that's certainly still a piece of it, and we certainly want our logo in the stadium, that's definitely not our priority. And now we're starting to see things in our deals where, hey, we need to have executive engagement. That's not usually a benefit or an asset that a team maybe was used to selling, but we want to make sure that your executives are present at our events and industry events talking about our partnership and the business success we've had together. So I couldn't agree more with what you said, Cabe. That's where we found the most success, partners that listen.
And it's funny you say that because I've seen a lot of teams go, and this is, again, I say this isn't recent. This is probably 7-8 years ago as well, that are building business networking groups within the organization. So utilizing the team itself as the conduit, if you will, to bring these businesses in the community together, because it's not necessarily about, we need to be doing something at the games or sorry, I got interrupted there, but it's about connecting into other businesses. But those ideas came about by listening to the companies and the brands and the corporations who are coming to them and saying, hey, I'd really love you to make me an introduction to those guys. Hey, I do this. Can you make an introduction? And then, like you're saying, it is about how they've listened and how creative they can be. And I'm sure Brent and the gang there at the 49ers have done a phenomenal job, because Brent's outstanding at listening and coming up with, bringing a team together to come up with great ideas. But, when you have that, what sets it apart is at the end of the contract, if you will, or the end of the first relationship, there's usually a higher level of satisfaction with the company, and they go, hey, you know what? These 10 things didn't really work out, but this 60, 70 things really went well for us, so we want to renew this. We look at this as a long-term relationship we want to be associated with. And if you don't do it, and if you just come up with some ideas that are, hey, this is what we have, we're going to just sell you what we have out of our box, and at the end of that first agreement, you see more often than not corporations and brands going, you know what? I'm going to put my money elsewhere. We just didn't feel there was enough value to it. It didn't matter if, you're selling out every game, if you're the highest team rank in the market. It's really about what it did for the brand itself and whether or not it was of value to them. And, so again, it's like David say we're talking about, there's no specific thing that's drawing them in, but it is the listening and it is the activating off of creative ideas that can help them grow.
Yeah, I love where you guys are taking that, because when it comes down to it, it's, a good brand experience is about storytelling, right? And so framing that up, Dave, for you, the executive huddle experience that tells the story and kind of gives you a peek behind the curtain at some of the technologies that are powering a game day experience ends up being a powerful moment for people because, SAP can be a little bit of an esoteric brand sometimes, maybe.
No, not us.
I remember seeing SAP splashed all over the NFL, use the SAP logo everywhere and totally that big awareness play. I get it. I get, and then I remember airport campaigns that SAP ran back in the day, which is, 450 out of 500 Fortune 500 companies run on SAP. And I still had no idea what SAP did. And, and honestly, it really wasn't until working with you guys and diving into, the platforms that you provide and the services that you provide, that I started to get it. And then actually framing that up against an experience that people are already immersed in, I think just tends to make a lot of sense. It's an interesting story. It's not a story that's obvious to everybody. And I think, you can kind of only frame that up within the context of it actually happening around you. So I think that's super interesting.
Let's step in real quick. David, I'd love to hear from you on this because that's a great point is when you're a brand that's B2C and B2B, how do you tell that story? How do you let, how do you get the Joe Q consumer to understand what it is that you guys do that a business, a corporation already understands and knows it in that space? I'd just be interested to see and then how you guys felt or if there was a learning curve when it came to that or if there was just no value whatsoever into the B2C play on it.
Yeah, I think, it's a great question from both of you guys. I think for us, look, what are people most passionate about, right? Sports, music, sports and entertainment, music, and religion, right? We kind of stay away from the third one, but we're all about the first two. People trust their favorite sports teams, right? SAP wants to be the brand that people trust when they're making technology decisions, right? When they're at work, for the future of their organizations. So we storytell, we want to bring to life the work that we're doing with our partners. And we do it both ways, right? Whether it's the B2B, executive engagement, speaking opportunities, case studies, interesting, video testimonials, things like that we can put up on, SAP.com to help people get an understanding of the work we do with the sports teams and hopefully develop and bridge that trust, make it stronger. And then there's the experiential piece of it as well, right? We want to gamify sometimes, as Shaman mentioned, not always the easiest to understand the value that SAP brings to organizations. But if I can create a fun manner as a fan that you can engage with at the game, and helps us deliver our messaging and helps you have a better time at the event or that you're attending, that's a win for both us and for our partner. Right, we want to make sure that we support our partners as well. It's not always about just us. If they have an important initiative, we want to be there and support that so that they can have, because the more success they have, the more success our partnership will have in general. So one of the most fun ones I'd like to highlight was our relationship with the NBA a few years ago. For 3 years, we ran a almost reality competition show called GM School. What we did for the NBA is we built NBA.com/stats with them. We brought the history of the league to life on their stats site. It contains every single box score going back to the first NBA game. It has video highlights from the last almost 10 years now. We rolled that out in 2013. You can go on NBA.com/stats and you can see every single shot Jokic hit during the finals on video. You can pull that back in under a couple of seconds. It's an incredible site, and we wanted to demonstrate how the use of data and analytics is impacting the league. So we created a reality show where contestants who had a lot of knowledge about the statistics and the way that NBA general managers operate, we gave them a bunch of competition challenges to see who was the best and brightest, and ultimately that resulted in hopefully getting an opportunity to work in the industry and making sure they had the right connections afterwards. But it was a great way for us, in a fun way. It was a 3-episode TV show to demonstrate how data analytics and technology is changing the game of basketball now. And it's one that I always highlight because it was a complete fan-facing activation, behaving like a B2C company, but we had that B2B messaging behind it in the end.
Yeah, I love that. It's all about the medium. I mean, look, we do. The reason that Gen City exists is to utilize innovative new mediums to capture attention, right? Like when we use augmented reality or virtual reality, when we're working with Web3 or websites or whatever that is, it's about creating an innovative medium for people to experience a brand message through. And that's what, that's what you guys did with the GM experience there, Dave. And it's creating your own medium. It's creating your own channel, right? And again, contextually framing up what you guys do, it makes it just more relevant, more interesting. And it's going to get people's attention, right? More than anything, you need to get their attention for a few minutes to be able to consume that message. So whether that's, by throwing on a headset, whether that's by providing them an experience to put them in the shoes of a GM, that's the key, is to get them to cross the threshold. And once they've done that, then you can start creating something compelling, creating something unique.
And then, thinking about that, this is Lauren from Gen City. Hello, Cabe. Hello, Dave. Cabe and Dave. I feel like you have your own show. Cabe and Dave.
Hey, Lauren. How you doing?
Doing so well. Cabe and I go way back to our Gaucho days. Mike Shaman is also a Gaucho.
Go Gauchos.
And Dave and I, we also go way back at SAP. Curious about the intersection of all of our worlds here. So, Shaman, you mentioned all of the creative technology we're using. Cabe and Dave, both of you talking about how you listen to your partners, your clients, and how you bring them ideas. I'm curious, as far as the intersection goes of all of that, how do you strategically decide, come up with your approach to bring new and innovative technologies to your partners? How do you approach them about AI? How do you talk to them about volumetric video, or when it's the right fit for VR and add an experience? Curious for both of your experiences there.
Yes, great question, Dave. I'll jump in real quick just because I'm probably the least educated on it. But what I would tell you from my experience is learning as the technology is brought to us. There's a bit of a squirrel mentality sometimes on the rev development side when we're bringing in brands for properties, and that our heads are always on a swivel. We're looking around at the next thing that comes in front of us, and a lot of it is relying upon partners that we have, or people that might not even be partners, to present us with new and creative ideas when it comes to those type of things, and with the technology and that kind of stuff. So, because again, Web3, AI, virtual reality, those are all things that, are not new, but are things that, most people on the property side are still learning about. And so it's really relying upon the companies that are out there that are creating it to present to them those ideas and bring to the table, how do you utilize our product or service in order to help a brand, and not necessarily sell us on, hey, you should buy our product and service. Because what we find is that unless you can help us, fit the round peg into the round hole, our squirrel mentality of chasing everything that's in front, that's the next thing that's in front of us, we're going to lose focus on it, and it's not going to bring a value to us. So that's just what I would tell you on this side of it. And again, the world of SAP and the technology world, they know a hell of a lot more than I do. So I'll be interested to see what Dave says.
Yeah, I think right along your thinking, Cabe. The way we approach it for our technology, which is a lot business, B2B focused, right? We like to come in, we bring our business development people, and we listen to the teams and leagues. We say, hey, what are your technology initiatives? What are your priorities? What are your projects? What are you guys working on? Right? What are the challenges that you're facing to get to where you want to be from a technology standpoint? Can we help? If we can help by presenting our solutions and some of the work that we've done with other sports teams, and I do want to emphasize the sports industry, it's important to know the industry. Because this is not enterprise, right? Sports teams, for the most part, are small organizations. So you have to understand the business to a certain degree, and providing other cases where we've worked with teams usually helps. And how do we innovate, right? How do we take the SAP Business Technology Platform and turn it into the executive huddle at Levi's Stadium? that's how we approach our technology adoption. For the cool stuff, the VR and the AI, that's kind of fan experiential. That's where we're lucky to know guys like you at Gen City Labs and some of our other agency friends. We come visit you and see how other brands and other teams are creating these really cool fan experiences on site, and how can we leverage that technology and partner with you guys to help tell the SAP story while engaging the fan in a fun way.
Sounds like I owe you both a proposal, so I'm on it. Don't worry. With the latest and greatest.
I want to throw it over to MK for a second. And if you guys don't know MK, she is our fabulous head of marketing at Gen City. But also in a previous life, she was running sponsorship for New York Comic-Con. And I think that as we think about sports activations, I think that one of the reasons it's so appealing is because of the passion that fans have and the impact of fandom. Dave, you were talking about it a little earlier. Like, they trust their teams. I mean, some people trust their teams a little more than others. Warriors fans, we trust our management and leadership. If you're somebody else, you might not. But, MK, what parallels do you see between fandom and the impact that fandom can have on brand relationships between, the world of Comic-Con, where I think you have kind of a similar mentality, and the world of sports?
Oh, my God. It's awesome. Like, the fans feel...
Do we have you, MK?
Can you not hear me?
No.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh. Man, I set that question up so nicely, too. Fine. Don't make me answer my own question.
Okay, wait. I'm turning it out. There we go. I put in my external microphone again.
You.
Look at that.
Amazing. Look at that. All right, so the question.
Change settings and shit, but whatever. Anyway.
See, this is what happens when you have to run the production studio and talk at the same time.
My computer is...
It's like rubbing your head and patting your head and rubbing your belly.
Oh, it's tough. But I think the fans feel seen by the brands that turn up where they're expressing their fandom, be it sports or Comic-Con or our PAX video game shows. A huge one for us from the fan communities was Star Wars Celebration. So anyone that had a Star Wars license was able to exhibit or sponsor at Star Wars Celebration. And so people were just fanatical about anyone who wanted to be part of that conversation with them. I think fans can see through it really quickly. If a brand is doing it at a surface or transactional level, just slap my logo on the stadium and walk away. Like, no one's going to really connect with that. The same thing would go with, like, energy drinks at a Comic-Con. Yeah, every single one of them went, yes, that's our demographic. Yes, we want to sponsor. Yes, give us a, spot to open our cans and pour some samples. And we had to really stop them at the event and say, hold on, let's talk about how we can integrate you into the event. So, we had to, work on category exclusivity and all that stuff to make sure that we showed loyalty in exchange as the event with one partner. So say it was Monster Energy, and then say, okay, where do we put you in a way that the fans are ready and willing to receive you, right? We're not going to put you on the way out the door. If we can help it, we're going to put it, somewhere where they need the energy pick-me-up. The back of the show floor was actually really good for them because people have spent energy, they've been walking, and are that much more happy to get a sample at that point. And then layering in, what are people doing while waiting in line to get a sample? There's another engagement time, and how can the fans feel like it was time well spent with that sponsor when there was so much else to do when they're absolutely saturated by their favorite thing.
Mm-hmm. It's funny you say that because, I think about, so representing the AVP, the Pro Beach Volleyball Tour, one of the things we talk about is the footprint of the tour itself on the sand. Everyone, you walk up and there's 20 some odd courts going, people walking around, sun's out, all that. But it is about, you talked about what are they doing while they're in line. It is about when they get out of their car at that point is where you should be activating, and at that point is where you should realize, okay, this is about the fan experience. The moment they have to figure out where parking is, the moment they have to do. So when you come to a brand and you talk to them a little bit more about that, interesting enough, I was discussing with an electric bike company. I don't know, there's probably 300 million of them now out there, but we started discussing how do we help moving fans utilizing the bikes, or how do we help you to showcase your product by actual usage? Because one of the things that they called out is we love the test drive. We need to get people test driving, because once they get on the bike, they feel it, it's immersive, they love it, they love the feel, the way it handles, all that kind of stuff. And so it's how do we get them on the bike as quickly as possible, not just showing them, but like you're saying it's areas that you don't necessarily think about for the brands to help them to get to that point. And going back into the discussion of the fanaticism of it, one of the easiest things in the world is when you're talking about college football is discussing the difference between college football and social media. And, you have a social media influencer. Social media influencers can have numbers that are, put a team to shame, but if there's no cause for a buy-in from the fans of a social media influencer, you can see the difference between their association to the brands that are part of this and that aren't. So meaning with a social media influencer, they've got, hey, I'm now drinking this beverage. You should drink it too. Well, that's great when they're scrolling through their phone and they're looking at it, but you go to a sporting event, and, college football is the example I always love to use, and you present that, and it's somebody who's got, and I'll call out this university. I'm not the diehard fan of them, but they're obviously hugely successful. Someone's wearing a Roll Tide t-shirt on. They love all the products that are associated with Alabama football, and there's definitely a difference in how you can lay your money out for your product, your brand, in comparison just to hey, there's big numbers here versus the numbers aren't as big here, but the people that are associated with maybe the numbers, and again, Alabama, that's a different story, but the people that are associated with those numbers truly feel it and want to be a part of it and want to be a part of all the products that are going to be there.
I think one of the cool reasons about sports, though, is you get so many home games to make that impact. Like with the Comic-Cons and stuff, we were in each market once a year for 3-4 consecutive days. It's get it right and then hope to continuously engage your fans through your own channels later. Hopefully you captured that lead, got that social follow, got their email address to follow them up with later. But there's something very different about having that home stadium relationship with the fan base or the broadcast network. Being there continuously and consistently, that's friendship right there, right? That's being there and being available.
Yeah.
Can I give a real life example of what Cabe just mentioned? Taking off my sponsorships hat and putting on my fan hat. Most people who know me, I usually don't go more than 40 minutes without mentioning that I'm a proud graduate of the Ohio State University.
There you go.
I buy all of my insurance through Nationwide without even thinking about competitive offers or anything, because Nationwide supports our university. They are headquartered in Columbus, Ohio. They support our athletics programs. They hire a number of Ohio State graduates. That's the type of connection that you can build through these types of sponsorships and activations in stadium and experiential, because I will buy from Nationwide until, honestly, unless they move their headquarters out of Columbus, Ohio, I will never stop buying from Nationwide. But that was just a perfect example. Never heard of that Alabama program, but at Ohio State we have Nationwide as one of our big brands.
Nationwide is on Dave's side.
I love it.
Yeah. And that's actually awesome. And I love it because it is aligned so tightly with your own interests and your own passion and your own fandom that's a perfect example. I think, one of the things I think is interesting going on right now, in fact, next week, if you guys don't know, and Dave, I actually meant to ask you about this outside, but NBA, the NBA, the National Basketball Association, is putting on NBA Con, which is the NBA Fan Fest, which is one of the first times that you think about a league elevating out of being a fan of an individual team and being a fan of a league overall. and because of the NBA's international footprint, because it's for the NBA, they have Summer League where all the rookies and young players come together in Las Vegas and kind of play in a big tournament. They're able to do that and bring not fans of the Warriors or the Lakers or the Heat or the Nuggets, but fans of basketball overall, to bring them to Las Vegas. That's actually happening, July 7th through 9th, being put on by the NBA and some of our friends over at Emerald, which I think is a unique experience to reach out to a broader base of individuals. And actually, Dave, does SAP have a footprint there? Is that something you guys are involved with? You're on mute.
Thank you. So it's always tricky to navigate the mute button. So interesting that you bring that up because I'll be out there to check it out because we are very excited that they're doing something like this. This is, I think it's new for the league. So, we're not going to activate there, but similar to what Cabe was talking about earlier, where we are going to activate is, at the WNBA's B2B Summit, which is happening right around the same time, I believe, around WNBA All-Star. So again, if we were a consumer brand, we'd probably be at NBA Con, but being that we're a B2B enterprise software brand, the B2B Summit was the better fit for us. But, you're seeing just a perfect example of how the NBA is just fantastic at incorporating culture, into their sport and their kind of fan experience. They've always been great at that, and that's one of the reasons why we love them so much.
Yeah, well, depending on when you get out there, by the way, not that everybody who's listening to this, whether live or remote, wants to hear about me making plans to get together with Dave in Las Vegas, but let's get together in Las Vegas. I'll be there too.
Yeah, it's a great point because most of the leagues, obviously they do their fan activation or fan fest around, All-Star, Draft are kind of the two, and then obviously Championship. NBA, it's a little bit different because Championship's multiple game. But it's a great idea to just say, look, let's just do a stop and reset for all of our fans and come in and give them a chance to be a part of something amazing that's not necessarily around, a jewel event. And so it's really cool, and it'll be interesting to see. It's one of my clients that I work with are the folks at InOcean with Kia, and I know that they've done a little bit of a spin there with the NBA. But it'll be interesting to see and hear from them as to how they felt their activation went on it. But overall, similar to what you're saying is for brands that have been associating with the NBA at the league level and even the certain team level, I don't speak for all teams, there's overall a longevity because of the fact that they seem to find ways to create value for their brands and not just necessarily say, hey, take it or leave it, here's what we've got for you. So.
Yeah, and I think there's such a thirst from fans' perspective to consume more content. Because you look at the NFL and you have 17 games, right? And then you've got playoffs and Super Bowl and then some preseason stuff. But in general, you've got a relatively limited season for the players. And I know that's one of the reasons that the NFL has built up other tentpole events, right? Now you have the draft, which occurs in April. And the draft is now has a fan fest around it, right? They get 100,000 people, whether it's in Nashville or whether it's in Vegas or, named Kansas City this year. They've created these large IRL activations, and then, built a very significant presence around it, not just to drive sponsored dollars, although I'm sure they're very effective at that, but because there's interest and you have the attention of the consumer and you have an opportunity to connect more deeply with them and provide them more content in between seasons. And I think that's, NBA Con clearly is sitting on the edge of the NBA season, which just wrapped up a few weeks ago. But the season comes up around the corner. It's going to be just a couple of months after, Las Vegas and Summer League, the season starts up again. So, it's very interesting to watch these moments in time and these IRL activations being created, both to cater to fans and also to provide these additional opportunities to connect directly with them.
Yeah.
So let me ask a broad question, and this is about the future of events. Where do you see IRL event activations, and this is both digital, physical, you name it. How do you see that changing in the next 5 years? Do you see significant changes being made to it? Do you think that it travels along the path it's going, maybe with a little bit of growth? Do you see something like AI impacting the fan experience? Because AI is everywhere right now, we can't get away from it. Do you see new ways of consuming these events, maybe remotely? Dave, let's start with you. How do you see the future of SAP sponsorship and IRL events?
So I think digital and all these new channels and mediums are here to stay, and that's always going to be a big component for us. However, I know for a lot of our partners, nothing will ever replace the real life experience of being at that moment. And Shaman, I'll use when the 49ers win the NFC Championship game by beating Aaron Rodgers.
That was so awesome.
Only throwing 8 passes, I believe, that game. Just a couple years ago. But, nothing replaces that experience. And to our partners, the teams in the leagues, that matters. They want the stadiums full, right? They're working also to provide their content through digital channels to fans all around the world. But we want those stadiums full. We want to keep that atmosphere. So in real life is always going to be a priority, and it's always going to be important, and we're going to have to leverage all of these new technologies, whether it's AI, Web3, right? Everything that everybody's discussing right now. How do we get creative? How do we innovate with those to provide experiences that are just once in a lifetime, that will make fans want to come out to the game and experience that in real life? So I don't think that component's going anywhere. And as a partner and sponsor, we're always going to want to support our friends and our teams and leagues to help them make that live experience the best it can possibly be.
Awesome. Yeah, Cabe, what do you got?
I think I'd speak more to the hardware aspect of it. But one of the things that I've seen in one of my clients, SME, they're a builder for experiential activations under a bunch of different agencies. But what I've seen from them and what we're seeing is a more customized experiential experience. There are not as many of these traveling tours anymore where you'd see brand, for example, Star's doing a great job. They're doing brand activations all over and stuff, but there's not as much of the, hey, we're going to build this one structure and then we want to just hit a bunch of different events. What we're finding is they're tailoring the events in which they go to, and then they're tailoring the build and the experience to the event itself. So it's not just about our brand placement in, the fair in Wisconsin. It is about, what is the fair in Wisconsin like? Okay, let's build and make something to incorporate us more into that. And so, yeah, we've seen it more and more so where it's less of a, hey, we've got a national tour. We want to take this. We're going to go to a bunch of different locations. It is now hey, we're going to look at the national tour, but we want to build something custom for you. We want to make sure that it has a look and a feel. We look at, brands like, Don Julio Tequila. They do a lot of stuff at the festival, so they're looking at, Coachella and things like that. But they're building it to match the Don Julio brand, but also customizing it for the fan base that they're trying to approach. So, that's kind of what I'm seeing more and more so on that space. Again, the incorporation of technology into some of the, again, I always say hardware, but, the fabrication, the build out, we're seeing it a little bit, but I just say it from my end, it's just less of knowledge than it is usage at this point. But I agree that we will see more AI and definitely more VR when it comes to these experiences.
Yeah, I think, from my perspective, living in technology, I think we're at a very special inflection point in terms of different technologies kind of coming together to combine some really phenomenal experiences. You look at augmented reality, you look at what Apple's doing with Vision Pro headset and how that has the potential to kind of impact consumers very broadly. I think you look at Web3 and the concepts of decentralization and digital ownership of assets. That's going to have an impact on how teams interact with fans, how fans feel a sense of ownership of their fandom and become more connected to teams and brands that support them. You look at AI, and I think that is a content creation and personalization layer that is going to change a lot of things in the space, whether that's having individual agents kind of to accompany you, whether that's, just massively improving and personalizing an experience for you. I think it's going to, impact everything very, very significantly. That said, at a high level, a great story is a great story, and that wins every time. And if you watch the 49ers beat the Packers in the NFC Championship, that is an experience that is unequaled in any technology in anywhere. I know, and just wrapping up with a few words here, I know Mike Moreno's in the audience, and one of the things he told me many years ago resonated. He was, I think it was a Raider Steeler AFC Championship game that he could have sold the tickets to, for back then $500, a lot of money. But life is about experiences, and you're not going to remember what you did with a few bucks if you sold your tickets. You are going to remember if you attend an event that had an incredible finish or something truly memorable occurred when you were there. So thank you guys, Cabe and Dave. Thank you very much for spending the hour for us. For those that have attended live, we really appreciate your time and attention. For those listening to it on record, we appreciate you all as well. Once again, this is Gen City Labs. We are going to be hosting sessions every couple of weeks. We're always open to new and exciting topics. I think, MK, you're going to have to remind me what 2 weeks is.
2 weeks from now, we're going to do augmented reality.
Augmented reality and brand activation. So,
I feel like there was even more with sports. We'll have to circle back to this. Maybe closer to the fall when F1 fever is going off. Maybe we should because there's things of the segments of the audience, right? In some ways, sports activations can be super family friendly. They can also go super luxury and high end, and there's so many other considerations that we didn't get a chance to explore today.
I totally agree. We will have to do another session, and Dave, Cabe, would love to have you guys back in the not too distant future to run it back.
Sounds good. Well, I appreciate being here. Thank you guys. This was fun to chat with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel the same. Thanks again for having us.
Absolutely, and I'll see you in Las Vegas, my man. So
very productive business meetings on tap, I'm sure.
Awesome. Well, once again, thanks to everybody who has taken the time out of their day to join us. We are GCL, and we appreciate you all. MK, thanks so much for getting this all set up. Lauren, thanks for joining as well. Cabe, Dave, until next time.
Thanks, guys.